So the next universal law that we're going to be talking about today is the law of pattern. So the law of pattern states that everything happens in patterns. It's so interesting because you might have heard of the pattern that Nikola Tesla discovered that goes in 369. So he states that every single thing in our universe works with this beautiful pattern. So this 369 is called the golden ratio or the Fibonacci sequence. And so it states that everything in nature, everything in the universe exists in fractals of one another. And so these fractals essentially build up, and create the world around us. And so there's patterns that exist in everything. And very early on in my journey, I started to recognize these patterns that were showing up in my life, patterns that were also looping and happening over and over and over again in different scenarios. And this is so important to understand for yourself and also for your clients, because oftentimes our clients will have these problems that are showing up in their life, and they think that their problem is about their boss, or it's about their partner, or it's about that person at the store, whatever. And they think that their problems are happening from people and circumstances and things outside of themselves. And what I have found in my life and what I have found with many of my clients is that these patterns are actually occurring because of what is being created within. So I'll give an example. Let's just say somebody is having a problem with their boss. They dislike their boss dislikes them, they argue. So they quit that job and they go and they find another job. And before you know it, they have a problem with that boss too. They quit that job, they find another job, and they have another problem with their boss. What you could pick up on, if you're seeing this happen with yourself or you're seeing this happen with your client, is not that every single boss in the world sucks, but perhaps the client or you or whoever it is has an inner pattern that they're creating, an inner energy, an inner frequency that they're sending out, and they're creating these patterns of maybe it's having a problem with authority or not liking being told what to do, or maybe they're being put in these situations because the universe is trying to show them that they're meant to be their own boss. Now, of course, I'm saying that this exists in patterns. I don't know if it's always the case for one-time situations, but with patterns, this can be a great way for the person to go introspectively and ask themselves, what is happening within me that's creating this pattern? And so when I started to pick up on the patterns that happen in the universe, I started to look at the patterns that existed within my lineage and what patterns did I want to continue to perpetuate, because there's a lot of good things about my lineage. And what patterns did I no longer want to continue to perpetuate? And when we become aware of those things that maybe your mother did, or your father did, or your grandparents or great-grandparents did, or had done to them, or acted, when you have that awareness, then you can decide to make different choices so that you do not have those patterns reoccurring. And when you're able to do that, that's when you actually start to break generational patterns. So we talked about earlier how memories, emotions, intelligence, instincts, this can be stored in our DNA. And so when you become aware of the patterns that you no longer want to perpetuate, then you can begin to shift those. And so a lot of the times, if I'm having a problem, I'll ask myself, where else is this showing up in my life? And if I'm seeing a pattern, then it gives awareness to me of where I can start to shift my energetic frequency, my thoughts, my beliefs, my habits, my identities, so that I'm not creating these results in the world. Now, this creates a lot of ownership because you have to own that you have the pattern that's creating this. And again, I'm sharing that this is a nuanced thing. This is not something that's reflective of every single experience. So use your intuition for when this applies to you or your client and when this does not.